is Thursday, which means it's our weekly goals meeting where we go out to lunch and talk to the kids. And now Cammie, to see how they did on their goals for the week. And this is Cammie's like first time. She has to like report how she did. We are just wrapping up our goals meeting. Everyone did a good job, but we still have some things that were missed. We're going for 100%. And the two things that every goal needs to be is specific and measurable. So to just say like, oh, like I want to work on editing, doesn't work. We have to be like, I'm gonna watch 3 editing videos and take notes about what I plan on implementing. And Cammie, this week, she recorded her song, but she did not finish her goal. What was your goal?
To upload my song by today, and I needed to practice 5 times my song, but I only practiced 3. Uploading and recording, I separated those two so there wouldn't be as much confusion.
We put a lot of emphasis around here on shipping the product. Like, you can't just like write the song, you gotta like record it and get it up there. Otherwise, like there's a ton of work that just kind of like sits like kind of half finished. When there's these like final steps, you're like, oh, I'll do that someday, like. But we also want to celebrate like that it is cool. I think Cammie wouldn't have recorded this song unless she came to this meeting, so I'm really glad there's progress. But we need improvement.
I feel like I'm back in school again. It's really good because I feel like I'm being challenged and pushed, and I think if I was left to myself, I wouldn't be as challenged or push myself as much. So I'm really glad that I'm joining this crew. Now we're going to counseling.
We're almost there, but we're already like 2 minutes late. I don't know how this always happens, but I'm sure our counselor could explain it to us. Look who's behind us. This is the part of the vlog where we reward ourselves by eating calories for doing something difficult psychologically. But Cammie made a very big move today. She said she only wanted half a cupcake, and she chose a pumpkin spice. Is it pumpkin spice latte cupcake?
Yeah.
And someone's got to eat the other half. Four days ago, we released a vlog for Eden's birthday, and I said this line: it's hard for me to love Eden sometimes. When I was editing this, I like went back and forth like a lot of times whether to include this. And it wasn't because of wondering if it was true, it was because I was wondering how it would be received. There's no doubt in my mind that this line is true. Like, I do struggle with loving Eden. And if you're to ask me, I struggle with loving all the kids and Cammie and my parents. But this wasn't about all the kids, this was about Eden. And actually, she is one of the kids that I've struggled the most with. So that's like actually a really important theme in our life. But as I was watching this video, I was like, oh, like, I know how people are gonna hear this. I decided to keep the line in. And we got some reactions from it. I'd like to share a few. G6 Tribe wrote, Ben and Cammie, can you do more videos about parenting children when you have a hard time connecting with them? And I kind of didn't really understand that, so I wrote back and said I'd like more details, and then she said, you said it's hard for you to love Eden sometimes. I wouldn't use that statement to describe what I'm feeling, but I have an inclination that may be similar. We're gonna try and address this a little bit, even though I don't feel like it's really clear to me exactly what you're asking. But you say you have a hard time connecting with your child, and you're asking how do you parent children that you have a hard time connecting with. So we're gonna go with that. And we'll share with you some things that has worked best for us. If you ask someone like, what is parenting? Well, for some people it means like you're teaching children, or you're like bestowing upon them your knowledge, wisdom, and grace. And I think that's like a part of parenting, but to me that's not what most of parenting is. Most of parenting for me is actually like receiving. And this is a biblical belief that children are a blessing. The most natural way to want to be or act is if we are the blessing to children, giving to them. But the biblical perspective is that we don't deserve anything, but that God loves us so much that he gives us kids, like even when we don't deserve it. So we're like the primary receivers here. And that's a huge belief, and it has implications on all the rest of how you do parenting. So what that means, the best way for me to parent a child when I have a hard time connecting with them is I need to always be willing to learn.
We can ask the question, why is it hard for me to connect with this kid or to like this kid? And to kind of go with that and try to figure it out. When you can answer that question, I think it'll help you understand yourself and the kid more. And I think when you understand more, you accept more.
We view that as an opportunity. In fact, you could almost even say that might be one of the main benefits or points of having kids, is so that we have to address those questions and learn those things. I don't exactly know how this fits in, but I know that this was a life-changing belief for us when we first kind of hit on it, was that I think there's things that you can do to actually like your children more. And even to see liking your children as a goal. Before that, I kind of saw parenting as like just this like task, like I'm the taskmaster. And you guys even saw it at the goals meeting today. I take on a little bit more of like a slave driver, boss, manager role where I'm like, did you do your task? You didn't do your task, you don't get the check mark. Do the task, get the check mark. You know, bad job. But that's just like...
No fries for you.
That's just one role that I play. And actually I'm pretty thankful that I think it's kind of a small role. And I don't really like it, but I think it's a part of our week. But primarily, the type of relationship I want to have with my kids is the same way I would see a blessing, or another way to phrase it is to see a present, is like, you just like it. You know, someone gives you something really rad, and you're like, that's so cool. And that's how I want to see my kids, is instead of like getting F's or not doing their goals or fucking up at this or making my life hard at this by making a mess, I just want to be like, damn, it's cool that you're a kid and I get to be with you. And that's a hard thing. And sometimes it's a mindset change in us. Sometimes maybe it's certain parenting things we could do to make our kids honestly like more likable or make us want to be around them more. If we're having a hard time with that though, the thing I think we shouldn't do is to blame the child. I think there's a lot of times kids are hard to connect with. They are, the relationship is difficult, and what do? We blame them. And this is like, oh man, I don't know if for some reason in the churches I grew up with, it was like worse than other places because we had this like spiritual lingo to go along with it. Oh, you're rebellious, you're a black sheep, you don't submit to authority, you're impolite, you're this and that. But there was like kids that just didn't fit into the families that they were around. They didn't fit into the churches. They didn't fit into the little like schooly or campy structures very well. And they were blamed for it. Like they were made to feel like little rebellious shits that couldn't get their act together when really they were either just being kids or just being themselves. And I'm not saying it's like always that way. Like, you know, maybe there was some parenting issues. You know, with Eden, when I have a hard time connecting with her, I really want to try very hard not to blame her. I don't know. I'm sorry if these are like general things, but once again, I'm not really super sure I answered your question, but how do we parent children when we have a hard time connecting with them? I think we can just act fairly and in their best interests regardless of how we feel. The second comment we got was from Mary Reynolds, and she said, okay, I had to stop the video midway. What Dad said, it's hard for me to love Eden sometimes. My jaw dropped. I gave birth to one child, adopted one, raised 3 more, and it never once crossed my mind that it was hard to love one of them. Loving my children is the easiest, most precious, most important feeling I ever had for another human being. It's never been hard loving my children. It might be hard to like them in certain circumstances, or I might not like something they do, or even how they choose to be, but I will forever love my children. I don't know what to make of this. Part of me is like, maybe this is a saint we're talking to. Like, that's a real possibility. Maybe we're using different definitions of love. Or maybe you're in like crazy denial. Let's start off with our definition of love. There's this like famous passage in the Bible that's quoted at weddings, and it's like from 1 Corinthians 13. It says, love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it does not boast, it's not self-seeking, it's not proud, it keeps no record of wrongs.
Never fails.
Never fails, does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. All these like things, but those things, like, I do not think are easy at all. To be not easily angered, you know, to be patient. Like, I don't want to like parse this too much and get too much into it, but I guess I'll say this, like, love is not a feeling to us. Love is like an action.
And a pursuit.
You know, one thing I think could be like kind of a little bit scary about what we said is it could be interpreted like, oh, Eden is a worse kid, that's why she's hard to love. And I want to be really clear, that is not at all what I said, what I believe, or what we think. Eden is just as good of a kid as any of the kids we have, and just as lovable and deservable and worthy of love as any of them. It has actually nothing to do with her. But I think it's a little bit shady to me, or optimistic or naive, to think like it will never be hard to love even the people that are the dearest to us. And this is where, like, I'll take marriage as the best example. I don't think that's why we get married, is because it's going to be easy. What makes marriage so special is this contractual thing that when the feelings go away, the relationship doesn't. That's what makes it marriage. Every other relationship, you have the ability to leave when you want. Marriage, you cannot leave when you want to. You have to stick it out. And I think actually a parenting relationship is very similar. No matter how much I don't want my kids to be my kids, they're still my kids. And that's what makes it really special, not the sentimental feelings. To me, the sentimental feelings come and go. And those are really fun while they're there, but we can't base too much off it.
Mm-hmm. I kind of felt like maybe she just didn't like the way you phrased it. Like,
that's cool. And I'm not trying to call you out, Mary.
She did say that she has had a hard time liking her kids sometimes, or liking what they do, or liking what they want to be.
Admitting that it's hard to love a child does not mean you're not loving a child. I think that's an important distinction.
Yeah.
And I didn't say that we stopped loving Eden. Or I stopped loving Eden just because it's hard. But I think
you're admitting you're human.
I think as parents, I mean, the first step in 12-step groups is to admit that you're powerless. Mm-hmm. You cannot get help unless you realize that you're, I guess, human, or that there's certain things that you can't do. And one thing I cannot do is always control my feelings towards my kids. I guess what I'm a little bit concerned about, though, is I feel like if it's not hard on some level, like, we're not paying attention. Because, like, there's so much difficulty, at least in our household, and chaos, and just constantly there's these times where these kids are doing these things. I'm like, how can you be doing this? But really, it's a picture of myself that I'm not willing to look at, and I'm really thankful for it on the meta level. But in the moment, it's really hard.
It's really inconvenient. Like, you're doing this and it's really annoying me.
And what I want to do at that time is to disassociate myself from my kids and be like, where'd you learn that from? Like, and of course they learned it from us, or they got it from our DNA. But I want to be like, oh, I am this way and you are that. But by not distancing ourselves and by saying, okay, this is a hard reality, but I'm going to learn from this, and I'm going to accept and love this kid, and take it as an opportunity to learn about myself. I actually feel like it's God giving us a second chance to see the ways that we're not able to even love ourselves. But because I can't admit it with myself, when I see my kid doing it, I'm like, that sucks. And I'm like, oh wait, that's an area inside of me that I actually really do think sucks, but I don't like to admit that I'm even that way. But God accepts my child, and I even accept my child that way. So if that's true, maybe God will accept me. But it's hard for me to realize that. That's why it's hard for me to love Eden sometimes, because I'm not willing to come to grips with those truths about how big God's love is. It has nothing to do with Eden. Thanks for leaving these comments, you guys. That helps get this conversation going, and I like to know where you guys are at and what you're believing. We do have a Facebook discussion group where there is ongoing conversations about these types of things that come up in these videos. And the link is in the YouTube description below for those of you guys that are not a part of that. And we are gonna go out for a run now and have some other things, but we're gonna cut the vlog off for the day. See you guys tomorrow.